The chair now recognizes Mr. Carter from Georgia for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here. Ms. Cooper, it's good to see you. I think we're neighbors in Atlanta, and I appreciate you being here. It's very important that we have advocates and we have input from all of you. You know, we have some of the cleanest air in the world right here in the United States. Even the EPA says that, and we're very fortunate. Yet, I'm troubled by this because, Ms. Cooper, you know Georgia, and you know South Georgia. We're very rural. And in fact, Georgia's the #1 forestry state in the nation. A lot of trees that serve as carbon sinks. In fact, we've got a saying in South Georgia. We say, whenever you breathe fresh air, get down on your knees and thank the farmer who planted the trees. And it's true. They serve as carbon sinks, and it's extremely important. But I'm concerned because we need economic development too. I'm concerned about the fact that this is pretty extreme, and the impact that it's going to have on development, particularly in the rural areas, particularly in South Georgia. And I'm concerned too about, you know, how smart we're being about this. I mean, for example, California. We know California has imposed some of the strictest emission limits in the world, and some of the strictest environmental standards in the nation. Yet a recent study found that wildfire emissions in 2020 essentially negated 18 years of reductions in GHG emissions from other sectors by a factor of 2. It would appear that we would concentrate our efforts on that more so if we were going to be able to really address this issue. I want to ask you, Mr. Hunt, I'll start with you. I want to ask you, what would be the impact on rural areas that become in non-attainment because of these proposed standards? I mean, if you look at the map behind me, you see we've already got some areas of non-attainment. If these standards come in place, what's going to be the impact on rural areas, particularly on a district like mine in South Georgia?
I mean, the irony with the way the EPA program is set up is in those cleaner areas, the impacts hit immediately. So one of our concerns is having a time frame for implementing any new standard that is sufficient to allow for transition to have a plan to let economic growth continue. So mills and other facilities would find it very challenging to modernize, expand, make new products in those areas.
Well, what about the areas that are already in non-attainment? Are they going to see improvements?
Any facility that's built or expanded in those areas will have already the top of the line air pollution controls. So the air quality from those facilities will improve or will be addressed as a result of those controls. Our facilities already have a lot of particulate matter controls already. We've made substantial progress over the decades in reducing emissions. So, we're wanting to be responsible citizens within our own communities, making sure that air quality is well protected.
Well, what about the impact? I mean, you said in your testimony that these standards threaten modernization projects that would already improve operations. What about the impact on manufacturing in the U.S.? We just recently had announced, and it's under construction now, the largest single economic development project in the history of the state of Georgia in my district, and that is EV factory. And we've got EV battery factories in Georgia. We've really embraced this. And what's going to be the impact on them? Will the federal support that they've received in recent years ensure that they meet the stringent permitting requirements?
If the standard goes down to 8 or certainly even down to 10, a lot of those projects would be in jeopardy. We've looked at several dozen facilities, and a large percentage of them would not be able to demonstrate attainment, again, because the standard goes into effect immediately and there's no sort of transition plan.
This is the concern that a lot of us in Congress have is we've got so many different agencies making so many different, and look, we all want clean air, of course we do, and Ms. Cooper, you talked about the impact it has on our health and the health of our children. And we want to make sure that that's right, but we got to be smart about these things. I mean, here we are pumping all this money into battery plants and EVs, and now you're telling me it's going to be jeopardized by another rule that another agency's making.
And the emissions these days are very small percentages from traditional industrial stationary sources. Wildfires are a huge source of emissions. So we want, EPA to come up with a much more holistic plan to look at sources as we address air quality issues. And we face, again, a global competition where other countries don't have the same environmental standards that we do.
Well, I'm just asking us to be practical and realistic. And thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimony. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.